Welcome back to Satisfactory. I'm Moko, you're watching Moko Plays. So last episode we did this stuff over on the right of the screen here in terms of unlocking logistics for splitters and mergers, automating some concrete production over here, and then unlocking foundations, which is really going to open up the possibilities for what we can do with our factory. So we started to lay down some space here that we can work and expand into over this very large chasm near to our starting base. So yeah, what we're going to look to do is to take this starting iron and copper setup that we've got here, get rid of it all, rejig all of that and place it down here in a way that's going to make more sense. Now it's not going to be our final iron or copper setups because we've still got some machines like some assemblers to unlock there. We're going to want to look at some alternate recipes, and we're also going to start to run into constraints from belt throughput while we're still working with tier 1 belts. But the immediate goal is to make sense of this and ultimately to make this more efficient, because we're not making best use of all the resource we can get here. We've got multiple pure nodes and we're not producing anywhere near as much as we could be from this stuff, even given the equipment we've got to work with right now. Let's take a quick look over here at what's next in the unlock tree. We've got field research, which is going to give us the MAM, and that's what's going to open the door to alternate recipes as well as another couple of things. Tempted to go for that next. If nothing else, that'll open up the let us start working towards the Blade Runners, which are going to help us get around the world faster. We're in tier 2, got the assemblers and that sort of thing. We need these, but we're not desperate for them yet. Jump pads we'll mess with at some point, but again, not an urgent thing. The awesome sync kit might be helpful to start thinking about. That's a way that we're going to be able to take any excess resource that we create and to get something useful from it. However, right now we're not really generating more than we're using, so that's one to think of for the near future, I think. And logistics phase 2, it would be really nice to have Mark II belts. We're a little bit constrained in terms of we can automate most of this stuff, but we can't automate reinforced iron plates just yet. But I am thinking this is going to be one that we're going to look at soonest, so I think logistics Mark II and maybe that field research are going to be immediate goals. In fact, we've got everything we need to unlock this right now, so let's get that going so that we've at least got it.
Milestone reached. The molecular analysis machine, referred to as the MAM, will allow R&D to provide new technologies, items, and buildings based on samples collected in the field. To ensure a greater chance of success during exploration, an upgraded tool belt has been provided, as well as an object scanner and beacons. Note: the object scanner requires calibration.
Okay, cool. Right. No, Ada's still gone? Oh yeah, the map has been unlocked, and in fact that's what you saw here just now. So we have much of the world covered in this fog of war at the moment, but definitely we can start to see and start to make use of this, which is pretty neat. Alright, so goals for this episode then. Let's take a look at our to-do list over here. That's all done. So what we're going to be looking at in the short term are getting to tier 2 belts. Now we're going to want to refactor basic iron and copper. Okay, let's also tag in here that we're going to work towards tier 2 belts next then. Is everything in tier 1 done? Yes, okay. So we've got most of what we need for this right now. We can't automate those reinforced iron plates, and in fact that's going to eat up a bunch of stuff that we're going to want to use to flesh out the factory. So let's rejig our iron and copper, and then we can look at that tier 2 stuff. so how's this going to work? Here's the pure iron node, the pure copper node's over that way. So I'm thinking that probably 2 platforms is going to be the way to go. We can have an iron platform right here, and then that's just going to give us free space to keep expanding over in this direction. And we can have a copper platform over there that's going to be smelting and producing our basic copper materials. And maybe we'll funnel everything back into some storage right around here. I think that sounds pretty sensible. Okay, so that's a pure iron node, so we're going to be able to take a Mark 1 miner like this, have that running that in. If we build it with the assumption that we're going to have Mark 2 belts, then that'll generate us 120 iron ore. We can build it for Mark 2 belts, get it up and running with the Mark 1 belts. What will happen is instead of 120 out of here, we'll get 60 out of here. And all that'll mean is if we use, well, essentially it means that any extra machines that we build that would be relying on resources above 60 per minute will starve in the short term. But that's okay, because the ones that are being fed are going to generate the iron plates and iron rods and screws that we're going to use to get us to unlock that tier 2 belts. If we really need more, there's more nodes here so that we could add in some extra inputs. For now though, I think we'll just stick with the 1. So the way that I tend to build this sort of thing is to make sure that everything's being built on a grid system using the foundations, and to try and keep things in the center of the grids or the foundation squares as much as possible, and that just makes everything look much more neat and tidy, makes the factory more navigable as well as we're moving around it. So the first thing that we're going to need in the chain here are going to be some smelters. I drop that down. Which way is in? Orange arrows for in. I'm going to drop that in the center of the square there, and I think that should be aligned this way as well. Yep, looking good. So we're going to run it with some of those. Smelters for iron take. 30 in and 30 out. So, in fact, yes, let's build with the assumption that we're going to take 2 of these nodes running at 100%. When we get our Mark II belt, that's going to give us 120 per node, so 240 iron in coming in raw. And we'll split that out. Belt throughput is still going to limit us. We can't run this on 1 line. We're going to have to run 2 lines from the 1 from each input. So, merger's going to go down. Not a merger. A splitter. A splitter's going to come from this side, and that's going to split our supports up to 3 ways. But to keep our belts neat and tidy, we're going to run in like a manifold pattern like this. This first one's actually misaligned. Just fix that. Input coming from that side, splitting this way. So we're going to have our 120 raw iron ore come in here. It's going to split 30 into this splitter, 30 into this one, into this smelter, sorry. 30 into this one, and 30 into this one. And then from here, this is going to be a new 120 coming in from this location, and it's again going to split 30 into the first smelter. I mistimed that jump. $30 into the second smelter, 30 into the third, and 30 into the fourth. One nice thing about Satisfactory is we're going to be running Mark 1 belts all the way down here to connect these. Mark 1 suits us fine from the splitter into the smelter, but it won't support as much as we need to run down the main input line here. However, one nice thing about Satisfactory is it's going to let us upgrade these belts in place. Once we unlock Mark 2 belts, we can just click to upgrade these without needing to remake and reset them. Hence why it's fine for me to set everything up now with our Mark 1 belts. and then we'll just come along and upgrade them in place later. Okay, next thing we're going to need is power to all of these machines. Do we have spare power input anywhere handy? We do from that. Let's grab that and just run that to the edge of our platform, and then we're going to run down the line here. Going to be 1 power pole for every 2 machines. Now, before I turn all of this on, we are going to want to consider that there's extra power draw coming from the sheer number of machines that we're adding here. So we are going to want to add some extra biomass burners right around the same time that we go live with this setup as well. Okay, the next thing that we're going to want to do is to then take these outputs and figure out how they're getting into our constructors. So with 240 raw iron, we're going to take some amount of that and turn that into iron plates, which we'll need quite a few of, although actually our demand for iron plates is going to be... I was going to say it's going to be lessened when we get to tier 2 belts, but I don't think that's true. We're going to be using the iron plates to make... what are they called? Reinforced iron plates? Which is what we need for the tier 2 belts, so we're definitely going to need iron plates. We're going to need some amount of rods. You always need some amount of rods, and then a lot of the rods that we produce are going to be for turning into screws. One alternative option we've got there is there's an alternative recipe sitting somewhere in the world to be discovered that's going to let us bypass this 2-stage construction for iron ingots into rods and then iron rods into screws. Instead, there's a recipe that lets you take iron ingots and turn them straight into screws, and it's slightly more efficient as well. So I think one thing that we might want to consider is going searching for that recipe before we set this up in a big scalable fashion. The way that I would normally tend to do this with this kind of pattern would be to run everything in terms of inputs down a line like this, and then to have outputs merged and run everything down a line like this, and then we can loop it round, split it off where we need to, send it to the various other areas of the factory. Belt throughput's going to be a potential issue there, though again we're going to be limited to 120 belts, so 4 smelters worth of output, so it doesn't make sense to run 1 belt right down. The other thing to consider is that some of these ratios are pretty straightforward. We're getting 30 iron out here if we're setting up a constructor for iron plates. That's a 1-to-1 ratio between 30 in, 30 becomes 30 ingots, and then our constructor will take 30 of those ingots in. That's what it wants per minute to make iron plates. So we can just do like a 1-to-1 here, and that would give us... iron plates are a 30 to 20, I think. 30 in per minute, 20 out. So if we took the first 4 smelters and ran those into plates, then we would get 80 plates per minute. And then that gives us an extra 120 of ingots to then split into iron rods and then screws. Rods are more efficient. They take 15 per minute and give 15 per minute out. So what we would be doing would be splitting these outputs, take this 120, 1 smelter feeds 2 constructors, so we'll have to do some thinking about the arrangement of that. Let's get going with the plates though, which means that we don't need to do what I was saying in terms of like a manifold of mergers down this way. We can just go 1-to-1 smelters into constructors. That's going to be too close to overlap, so instead we'll just place that in kind of the center of the next tile here. And then we can just run direct inputs here. Okay, and let's expand power down. Let's run it to that line. And again, 1 power for 2 machines, and then 1, it keeps everything looking neat and tidy, and 2, it means that we're only ever using 3 of these inputs, so if we need to expand further down, then we can do that. Let's set your recipe, making plates. I'm just Control-C, Control-Ving these settings, saves me clicking into the menu for each machine. So as soon as we start to feed these here, they're going to turn on and start drawing power. They won't actually be drawing any power at the moment. How are we on the power front? We have a capacity of 100 and a max consumption of 115. I think that's like max potential consumption, including the machines I've just added. Let me test that theory by adding another constructor. Yeah, that jumps up even though it's not being used. So we are over our capacity here, so we're going to need to add at least 1 more biomass burner, probably a couple because we're not done making machines here just yet. That'll give us plates. For the screws, we're going to want to take each output here and feed it into 2 constructors. There's kind of 2 ways we could do that. We could take 1 smelter, run it into a merger, and then merge into a constructor here and a constructor here. We would need to take up more space, so we'd actually want to get rid of this one, and build these with a gap in between, because each constructor is going to take up a tile here. The other way that we can do it is just kind of, since we're going to have 120 output coming through here, build it for Mark II belts, run everything down into a merger here, or here, I guess, to be neater. Run it forward a bit, run it down a line of splitters with constructor, 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 and so on. I think that's the way that we're gonna do it. Yeah, let's go with that. So if we add a merger here, we want the output of the merger to point straight ahead like that, of the end one, and the others I'm just rotating so the output goes that way, the way that I'm looking. And then let's just connect these. Cool. Yeah, this one's going to merge the output straight ahead here, so let's have a splitter right here in the center of this tile. And a belt down here, and then this is going to become a line of splitters down this way. No, that's going to clash with our constructors. We want to go 1 more tile further. Is that the center? Looks like it. It is. So, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. What I didn't consider, because I'm a little silly, is the outputs of these plates are also going to want to go somewhere. Let's not. We could shunt everything down another square and have our row of mergers here, or we could just fit it in the middle here. I think we'll do that. Don't want to go taking up, you know, endless amounts of space. this will be plates out, merged onto this line, and then we can just scooch this line back down towards our main base where we're going to store them. Let me just run that out there as a guide for myself so that I know that's what we're doing. Meanwhile, this is our line for iron rods. Well, the iron ingots that will go into our iron rod constructors. So I'm going to have a constructor at each location here. Nudge it back one and then it should be in the center. Cool. I'm going to run out of reinforced plates in a second. Let's just craft another few of those quickly. So it takes 2 iron plates to make a constructor. We need another 2 for rods, and then I don't know how many we're going to need for our screw constructors. Probably only really going to need a couple of screw constructors in the short term. Let's just craft a few of these. That'll do. This is definitely going to need us to scale up our power in quite a big way. Most of these aren't, well, half of these aren't going to be running right off the bat because we don't have those Mark II belts just yet. But we should plan with that in mind. 2... So again, we're going to want to... These are only 15 each. That's 60, 90, 120, so that's fine. That can all run on one Mark II belt. Have I got that facing completely the wrong way? Yes, I have. Oh, gosh darn it. I am so very used to... You know, it's one of those things where most of the Satisfactory you play isn't in the early game. You're used to having certain things. You get very used to being able to more easily get some verticality and look down on things while you're building. You get used to being able to run faster and jump further as well. Which is why I've been struggling a little bit to get on top of these mergers, just to be able to like get that teeny bit of verticality and look down on things. I say struggling, I mean, you know, we're managing just fine. It's just, it's been slightly clumsy. A little bit of Bambi jumping going on. Alright, okay, so that's going to run down here. We will actually be merging some of this line away into screws, but let's not worry about that right now. Power is something that we should think about. Let's run it to here. Right, that takes us up to about 150. We are going to dismantle some of these existing iron constructors and smelters and things, which will give us some capacity back. But let's work up to 150, and then we should be good. So each one of these gives us 30 megawatts of power. These two give us 20, so that's 20, 40, 30, so that's 50, 80 at the moment. Is that right? No, 100. Well, I'm confused. That gives us 30. That gives us 60. Oh yeah, and then 40 from over there. Oh, that was bad maths on my part. So if we add another 2 of these, that takes us up to 160. So we are good for the time being. Yeah, you have a spare connection on there. Thankfully, and I am very thankful, we had the foresight here to automate the construction of this solid biofuel, or at least automate it as much as you can do, which means we still need to keep an eye on leaves going into here manually. But that's really handy because the solid biofuel is way more efficient than putting in raw leaves and wood, or even just standard biomass. So we can add all of these in here, and then they're going to run for a good long while before they burn down and need stocking back up. Cool, that's power sorted. Really then, all we need to do is to get our miners hooked up here. Let's build a ramp up to this. If we go our name at the top like that, that'll clip into the ground, but it'll at least give us a smooth way to get up. Oh, we're positioning these things sometimes. There we go. So we're going to run... Why are you all non-recipe'd? So miner number 1 is going to run into here. I guess that's miner number 2. This is miner number 1. Alright guys, it's not a contest. Run that way. I'm going to run kind of that way. At least try and have the belt looking relatively neat. If possible. Are we in the middle there? Yes, we are. Go middle here. 2 back. And then that'll give us a right angle when we run this way. Nice. And with you. Run down to about here. And that to the edge, and then down. You need power. And you need power. And then that should get going. Okay, that's iron ore coming out of both miners. These here should just hopefully be sitting on yellow because they don't have anything fed into them yet. Should these. And as should these. Boy, these belts are slow. Right, let's get some... Let's try and get some organized storage then. Is this going to be more or less ground level over here? Yep, more or less. That's not going to go through too badly. That is, but we can live with it because it's a ramp. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Okay. And I am out of plates. Let's clear this stuff so it doesn't clip through once we have got that stuff. Hey, we have the first of our plates ready for us here. Just a few more. Few more, please. And I also can't afford to make that. Yeah. Why have we got an ingot coming straight out there? That's not what I expect to see. Have I done an oops? Those are all rods. Definitely seems like I might have done an oops with some belt work down here. I do not see how that would be possible. You're a constructor, you are, and you are? How then would an ingot output from one of these 4 smelters make its way through to this line? Unless these are somehow connected. Did I do an oops with some of these? Maybe I did. Maybe it's this one right here. Yep, that wasn't the way that was supposed to go. You are sorted. You go straight into there. You come into a splitter here. Going that way, but not with any kind of connection to this stuff. Ah, that's connected there again. Damn it. What's happening is it's soft clipping through this splitter. There we go. And was connecting to one of the merger inputs here, which is not what we were going for. Should be sorted. So long as I only did it in that one place. That is the first time I've ever run into that bug, but I do tend to not build mergers and splitters kind of right up close to each other like that. Alright, let's grab a few more of those plates and then we can make a couple of storage bins down here. So that there can be storage for plates. That can be storage. And let's build them right up close to save space for rods. And that can be storage for screws when we get some screws. So we're going to want to run belt number 1 to here. If you're thinking that I have a bin that's like half full of iron plates, like 50 feet in that direction, you'd be right. I am just being very lazy in grabbing them from here. One away from the edge for consistency, and again there. Is that straight? Yes. It's often quite hard to tell with perspective when you've got one going like down over whether it actually is straight, but it is. And you know what, I'm giving up on grabbing plates one by one. I'm going to go and grab a stack from the previous setup over here. And when I say a stack, I mean about 50 stacks. Right, let's run that into that. Let's make this belt that is not straight instead be straight. Running down as far as here. As far as that line, so if we go 2 back, that will make our right angle. That is the rule in Satisfactory. Go to where you're going to go, move it back 2 notches, and you get a nice 90-degree turn on belts and pipes and things. This, I think we can make this look a little tidier. We say we're going to do it to here. And that's right in the middle. So 1, 2, and then run this down to here. 1, 2, in. And then while we're doing belts, can prep this one for screws. It's going to run to here, and if we want screw production, we're going to have to expand this platform out a little further. So that's probably what we're going to do next, I think. Well, do we have enough resources on us right now that we could make everything we need to get those tier 2 belts? I think we do, or at least I think we will do, once we stock back up on concrete. And we might need another handful of screws, we'll see. Let's grab another stack anyway. And we're going to have to do a bit of manual crafting on the old reinforced iron plates. So yeah, let's take a quick pause on the recording while I just generate the few of those that we need for the next milestone, and then a few spares, and we'll check back in a second. Alright, a small amount of manual crafting later, we now have a bunch of reinforced iron plates ready to take us to that logistics Mark II milestone. Let's send that off.
Milestone reached. Improved versions of conveyor belts and conveyor lifts are now accessible. To encourage additional verticality, conveyor poles now have a stackable variant.
Cool. Right, okay, yeah, so in our logistics we now have the Mark II belts, which doubles our throughput to 120 resources per minute. And we've also got stackable conveyor poles, which we're not going to use much in the short term, but will become pretty invaluable later on in the game. Next milestone we're going to be looking at really should be part assembly. I did not have too fun a time crafting those reinforced iron plates by hand. Automating those requires the assembler here, so that's the next thing that we're going to aim ourselves towards. We do have enough reinforced iron plates though. I hope anyway, that we can go ahead and boost our production over here to make use of everything this is generating, because right now we're getting 120 from the machine, but instantly we are limited by this 60 per minute Mark 1 belt. So let's select the belt Mark 2, let's click and that'll upgrade in place. And we just need to do that for every segment of the belt. However, because we are not rich in terms of reinforced iron plates at the moment, I'm only going to upgrade the belts that actually need that additional throughput. So what we've got is 120 per minute coming in here, and we're splitting out 30, which is fine because it's on a Mark 1 belt into here. That leaves us 90. So we still need the Mark 2 belt for this one, this segment. Another 30 disappears, and then we're down to 60, or a full Mark 1 belt here. So I'm not going to waste any of those valuable reinforced plates by upgrading this belt right now because it doesn't need it. This one does though, so let's get that upgraded. And similarly the first segment does, that's our 120, minus 30, minus 30, we're now down to 60, so we're fine to be on Mark 1 belts. For the output side of things, the opposite is true, so the first smelter is going to output 30, and 60, so from here onwards, from here onwards, where the next 30 is added, is where we need to be using our Mark II belts. Now, that's going to be 120 into here. These are only taking 15, so it's going to be 120 minus 15, 30, 45, 60, so it's from this point onwards, I think we should be fine to just use a Mark 1 belt. But we do need to replace all of these with Mark 2s. Is that right? That's our Mark 2, so here's our Mark 1 feeding 1, 2, 3, 4 machines, 4 15s are 60. Yep, cool. And the same on this side, where the belts are actually just outputting straight onto the main line. 30 here is fine on a Mark 1, 30 here is fine on a Mark 1, 90 from this point onwards. So we need to be using Mark 2 belts, and do that all the way down here. And I'm not sure we're going to actually be able to afford to do that for this run of iron without making a bunch more reinforced iron plates. But the very next thing that I want to do is take some of those iron rods, and to get some screw production going here as well, because I used most of the screws that we had in storage to make those reinforced iron plates just now. So these give us 15 per minute. Screws, I can't remember at all what the recipe looks like. It takes 10 rods and it gives us 40 screws. At the moment we are producing... oh, this is neat. Satisfactory has this little in-game... It's a search, but it's also got calculator function built in. So that's what we're producing in terms of iron rods. We've got 8 machines doing 15, so we've got our 120. What we could do is take those, take half of them, send half of them into storage, take the 60, and what is it, a 1:4 ratio? 1:4, so we'll take our 60 per minute and get 240 screws per minute out of that. Let's do that. Which is going to mean we need 6 constructors because they take 10 each per minute. It's going to be on that row. What are we doing here? We're merging down to the end of the line here. We could run another row of splitters here and then merge the output back that way. That's probably going to make the most sense. But we want to merge after 1, 2, 3. This point actually is where we want to move stuff. So we're going to turn the output of the first 4 constructors here into our 6 screw constructors. And we can do this bit all on Mark 1 belts. Alright, splitters go there, yeah. We can run 2, 3, 4 here. And 2 here. Okay, that's in belts done. These guys all need a recipe. Oh, yeah, okay. Copy it, paste it, paste it, paste it. And then we need our merger line running down this way. And then we need power, and one thing we want to do before we start to, I was going to say before we start to connect all of these, we already have them connected, is to consider the extra power draw. In fact, while that thought is fresh in mind, let's take a look. We have a max consumption of 157. Oh, that includes all of the machines we just added, so we are right at the threshold of our 160. Which is cool. We'll build another biomass generator or 2 when we're back over there in a moment. But at least we know we're not gonna fry everything by setting this up. And in fact, as I mentioned before, we are going to be able to now completely get rid of our first prototype iron setup down in the main base. Wow, everything's just gone very framey for me all of a sudden there. Oh boy, I hope that's not a sign of an impending crash or anything. In fact, I am just going to save if it'll let me. Boy, that got something bad is happening performance-wise in that specific area. Maybe it was just when I was building those belts. I do not know. Alright, let's get power round to these guys. Probably going to want to run it to here. There is, by the way, absolutely no tangible gameplay benefit to keeping power in straight lines and stuff like that. It's purely just because it limits the amount of clipping and stuff that you get. Power lines especially will have a tendency to clip through buildings and I'm not really going to notice it too much. We'll try and avoid it with belts and with buildings and stuff, but sooner or later we definitely will have some power that's running through the middle of buildings and stuff, and it would be a huge challenge to try and make that never be the case. Hey, you know what I was saying about power grids being fine? Whoops, you know what I was saying about not falling off the edge of platforms? That was really undesirable thing that just happened there. And that great big beanie guy is having as bad a day as we are by the looks of it. Alright, what do we have that'll help us get back up easily? Stackable conveyor poles if we can afford them. Can you zoop is the question. You can. Excellent. Alright, I'm going to save again, just in case I fall off while climbing up here. Let's go another. Oh, like that. Cool. We are safe. Let's get rid of all of that stuff. If you're new to the game, you might have noticed that crash site down that we ran past there. We'll be coming back and looking at some of that stuff in an episode very shortly. Those are where we'll get some maybe cool resources, and also those are the path to getting alternate recipes to things, which is something we're going to be very interested in the relatively near future. Right, what was I hooking up? I was getting this belt in here. And then we need to look at the power situation. I'm hoping that something has just ran out of fuel, although the way it suddenly went down like that does make me think maybe we did overload. Either way, it's an easy fix so long as we have enough resources to build another generator or two. I think we do. What happened there? Our max consumption went up. Okay. Did I connect you? I don't believe I did. Just going to make sure everything is topped up with fuel before I flip the switch back on. And we are running low on vegetation that's being processed here. In fact, I think I've got some wood in storage, so I might flip that over to use wood once we start to run out of leaves. Sooner or later though, we're going to have to go and do some collecting. Alright, where are we at now? Our capacity from all biomass burners is 220 per minute. Our max consumption is 181, so yeah, we are good. Now we've got plates automating, rods automating, and screws automating, which is excellent progress. Our screws are going to be limited by being on a Mark 1 belt. We are generating way more than 60 per minute. So eventually what's going to happen is those machines are going to fill, and it's going to back up down the line. We're going to stop generating screws unless we can sort that out and make that scalable. Just going to give these ramps as well, so they'll look a little better. However, we only have 23 reinforced iron plates at the moment, so that's nowhere near enough to turn this entire belt to Mark II. We've got the resources we need to build all of that stuff now that we're building infinite amounts of screws and plates. It's just going to be a case of like handcrafting that stuff, unless we go to that milestone which is up in the top right for part assembly. So I think that's what we'll do. Get that assembler unlocked, and then we'll probably call that an episode. In fact, we're going to have to wait even for some screws to generate before we can unlock that. So let's call it an episode here. I'll let some of this stuff spin up off camera. Go and collect some more leaves and stuff for our biofuel as well, so that we've got a good sustainable, or you know, short-term sustainable at least, supply of things. And we'll check back in ready to unlock the assembler and then to rejig our copper production next episode. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Satisfactory.